It's 1984, and Walter Mondale is running against Ronald Reagan. And he has the first woman ever on a national ticket for a major party. Her name was Geraldine Ferraro. And, even with her haircut and her pantsuits, it was exciting. I was a young actress. I just moved to New York, and I was working with this grassroots organization called Artists in Action, and it was like a on-the-ground, get-out-the-vote kind of thing. And I was heading up this endeavor to register homeless people to vote. And apparently, Ronald Reagan's policies allowed a lot of mental institutions to close, so those people were just put out on the street. So there's this rush of homeless people in the early 80s in New York City. And I was from a small town in western Massachusetts, and I had never even seen a homeless person, so it was a little overwhelming. And everyone says, you'll get used to it. So I spent 1 year on a soap opera called Search for Tomorrow, which I like to call Search for a Storyline. And I was eventually murdered, and I switched over to TV commercials. And in 1984, you could not turn on the TV without seeing me selling something. I was actually selling a lifestyle. It was young, carefree, desirable but not unattainable, quirky, kind of the girl next door, but a little more interesting. I had my pocket. One day my agent calls me, he says, "You're gonna laugh." I said, okay. He said, "You've been requested for a national spot. It's a political commercial, long beat, for Ronald Reagan." I said, ha ha, that's funny. He said, "No, I'm serious. The director from your Red Lobster campaign, that was my biggest client." This guy put me in everything. I loved him. He requested you. He thinks you're perfect. And I said, "There's no way." He said, "Michelle, it is a triple fee buyout. They're only going to run it for 2 weeks before the election. It's a lot of money." I said, "They can't buy me. This is the problem with the Republicans. They think they can just buy. Okay, tell them I'm working for Mondale. It wouldn't be ethical." And he said, "Well, if you turn this commercial down, some other girl is going to do it. Some other girl is going to take this fat paycheck home. It's not like it's not going to get made." And after he said that, I thought about it for a second, and I thought, if I do the commercial, I could take this Reagan blood money and I could donate it to the Mondale campaign. So I could turn a deficit into like this win for my candidate. So I agree to go in. I'm thinking, what are the odds I'm going to get it? Cut to, I get it. So I do this commercial. I don't tell anybody that I booked it. I don't even tell my parents, and they are big Reagan supporters. So I'm hoping that this commercial is only going to play in a few random swing states where I don't know anybody. This is before the internet, if you can imagine. You can't just Google like nasty ads for politicians and have it come up. The commercial is like a Hallmark card bathed in golden light, and I play a young Midwestern wholesome girl who's voting for the first time, and she's telling her grandfather how she's going to vote. And he starts spouting these evil statistics about Democrats and tells me that he hopes I do the right thing. Fade to black, and on the screen is "Vote Republican. Our future is in your hands." So I get paid. About week, 10 days later, I get the check. And as promised, I sign it over to the National Democratic Committee, and I just send it in as a donation. And then a while after that, I get this phone call at home, and as soon as the voice comes on the line, I recognize it from the news. It's this guy named Charles Minot. He is actually the head of the National Democratic Committee, a very big guy in politics at the time. So he says, "Hey, thanks for all your work for the campaign. I think all this grassroots, boots on the ground stuff is really going to be important, and really appreciate your help." I said, "Thank you." He said, "And that was a very, very generous donation that you gave to the campaign. We really thank you for that. It was a pretty big number for such a young lady." I said, "You're welcome." And he said, "We also know you did the commercial for Reagan. We've seen it. And we think it's going to be very good for them. We're trailing in the demographics under 25 voters that are voting for the first time like yourself. I didn't say anything. I was busted. I couldn't even speak. And he said, so we've arranged to put you on a few TV programs. Next Thursday, The Today Show, and next Friday, Nightline with Ted Koppel, and Sunday night, 60 Minutes. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, are you kidding? This is the biggest story of the election. The girl on the Reagan commercial, the wholesome Midwestern girl who's voting for Reagan, voting for the first time, is actually a tireless worker for Mondale in New York City. She's registering homeless people to vote, for God's sake. Then she gives every penny of that commercial to Mondale. It's golden. This is going to change the election. So he says I can turn the election around, and this is very flattering. And I'm also thinking I could be a historic person. It could be me and Geraldine Ferraro on the podium, the confetti, the balloons. And then I start thinking, Ted Koppel is going to eviscerate me on national TV. I don't know anything about talking points or policy. I don't know why the trickle-down economics of Reagan's aren't helping the working poor. I don't know shit. I don't know what to say. I don't want to tell him that. So he says, young lady, the future is in your hands. You have to tell us. The future is in your hands. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that on TV, the future was actually for the Republican Party in my hands, but I didn't want to be rude. So he says, so what do you say? Are you on board? And it's funny because I kind of thought that I was on board. I kind of thought after 5 months of dedicated volunteer work, phone banks, talking to every crazy person in Central Park, and giving a very big five-figure check to the party, that maybe was kind of construed to be on board. And now he wants me to go on national TV and say, that product that I endorsed, that product that I was paid a lot of money to endorse, well, actually, I don't use that product. I actually hate that product. That product is evil. That product is going to bring down our country, and you should use the other product because the other product is much better. I can't do that. So I didn't tell him any of this. I just said I would think about it, and could he call me back tomorrow? So I make a few phone calls and talk to some friends, talk to some people in the business. Some of my friends said, oh my God, you have to do it. It's your 15 minutes of fame. And other people that I trusted from work, they said, it's a really bad idea. This is your livelihood. This is the way you make a living. You can't make a commercial for a product, even if that product is a person, and then go on national TV and trash it. Absolutely not. So I decide, even though I'm very tempted, I decide not to do it. And the truth of the matter is, if they had just offered to give me some talking points, like they do all this debate prep now, if someone had just told me what I should say and some statistics and some things I could say back to Ted Koppel, I probably would have done it, but I was too embarrassed to tell anybody that I didn't know what I was talking about. So cut to the election. It is a landslide. It's the worst landslide for any candidate presidential election, I think probably in the century. He was slaughtered. And everyone agreed that even if I had gone on TV to reveal this whole commercial mishegoss, it wouldn't have made any difference. He didn't have a chance. And so, all these ensuing years later, I've been involved in a lot of other presidential campaigns as a volunteer. And now for this one, I'm with her. It's another woman on a ticket at the top this time, very exciting. And but I don't try to change anybody's mind anymore. I just am like preaching to the choir, like most of us. And I think for the most part, everyone's mind is pretty made up, no matter what it is you tell them or you try to sell them on TV. Thank you.
Cool. Michelle Joyner, ladies and gentlemen.